Okay, this evening I've already covered the NGC 50 to 99 series. I'm about to leap ahead because I had already captured 1 to 149. We're going to begin with NGC 150, a fairly spectacular galaxy in Sculptor. Magnitude 11.4, probably the brightest galaxy of the evening, we shall see. 3.9 by 1.9 arc minutes, spiral with a bar and lowercase b. A mere 70 million light years distant, which puts it at about 70 to 80,000 light years in diameter, smaller than our Milky Way. We are at almost minus 28 degrees, and in terms of right ascension, 3415, and the scope has had to do an equatorial flip in order to capture this part of the sky, which may have some effect on blocking studies that are further north. We shall see. NGC 151 is a galaxy in Cetus. It's also NGC 153. Very bright and large. Wow, 2 sub-12th magnitude galaxies right off the bat. NGC 151-53 is magnitude 11.6, largest 3.8 by 1.6 arc minutes in size, 130 million light years distant. Puts it at about the size of the Great Andromeda Galaxy. It's a spiral with a bar and a lowercase bc. We are at almost minus 10 degrees in declination. NGC 151 was also NGC 153. There's a view a few seconds later, and you can compare the two views perhaps in order to get a sense of how longer exposure times might affect the presentation using the Rev2 system. NGC 154 is another galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14, however smaller, 1.1 by 0.9 arc minute elliptical galaxy, some 357 million light years distant, puts it at about 100,000 light years across, like our own Milky Way. We are at minus 12.5 degrees in declination. NGC 155 is another galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.5, larger, 1.7 by 1.3 arc minutes, a lenticular spiral, 276 million light years distant. I would say it's probably about 110,000 light years in diameter. We're at minus almost 11 degrees in declination with this view. Well, we scored big and bright on this one. This is NGC 157, a galaxy in Cetus. One of the 100 or so galaxies that are brighter than magnitude 11. This is magnitude 10.4, 4.1 by 2.7 arc minutes, 77 million light years distance, probably about 80,000 light years in diameter. We're at minus 8.5 degrees declination, and you can see the spiralicity in this spiral with a bar and a lowercase bc galaxy. I'm going to give it a moment to fully absorb as many photons as possible before preparing to go to the next study, which will be NGC 158, which is a star in Cetus, so forget that one. We're going to be going north. There's our view. Beautiful spiral galaxy. Well, we've headed north into Andromeda. NGC 160 is a galaxy, magnitude 12.6, 2.9 by 1.6 arc minutes, a spiral with a lowercase a and a ring. Look for it. The ring should be probably around magnitude 17, if it can be seen. We're at plus 24 degrees in declination. I'll give this one a moment so we have a chance to pick out that annularity, which I do see a faint ghostly shadow on the screen before me. NGC 160. We've headed back down south into Cetus for NGC 161. Magnitude 14.3, 1.3 by 0.8 arc minutes, a lenticular spiral, 268 million light years distant. It's probably a little bit smaller than the Milky Way. We're at minus almost 3 degrees and 35 minutes declination. Back up into Andromeda at plus 24 degrees is NGC 162. Faint, magnitude 16.8 by 0.3 arc minutes. It's a spiral with a lowercase bc, some 285 million light years distant, puts it at about 60 to 70,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 24 degrees, and I am seeing some faint presence right there on the screen. It looks like it has about the right aspect ratio, so maybe we can say we have actually seen on this evening a magnitude 16 galaxy. There are others somewhere in this field as well, particularly that one there, which is probably around magnitude 13. Once again, we've headed south into Cetus for NGC 163 this time, galaxy. Brightish, magnitude 12.7, 1.6 by 1.2 arc minutes, football shape, elliptical, class O, which is odd. That would give it an O. They're more spherical than that. 267 million light years distant, and we're at minus 10 degrees in declination. Okay, here we have a chance to see if we can identify another 16th magnitude galaxy. In this case, NGC 164, galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 16, face on 0.4 by 0.4 arc minute spiral. It's at plus 2, almost 3 degrees in declination. I can't be sure. There are some faintish presences, probably right about there on the screen, but it's pushing the limits. NGC 164. And it's starting to pop out now. So yeah, most definitely 164, 16th magnitude galaxy. And I'm going to have to check how long it took for this to develop on the screen. It takes me usually about 5 seconds to finger in the data after the scope uses Go2. So like I said, typically 20 to 25 seconds to get a full instantiation on the screen after 6 passes, 128 flood, and 42 auto gain control. Unlike the NGC 50 to 99 series, which was overstuffed with galaxies, we seem to be moving pretty quickly through the ones in the 150 to 199 series. This is NGC 165, galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.1, 1.6 by 1.3 arc minutes, spiral with a bar in lowercase bc, descriptors 263 million light years distant, puts it about the size of the Milky Way, and we are at minus 10 degrees in declination. We're pretty far south on this one, minus 13.5 degrees for a 15th magnitude galaxy. NGC 166, a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 15, is mentioned 0.9 by 0.3 arc minutes, a spiral with a lowercase a, 268 million light years distant, and minus 13.5 degrees in declination. I'm not sure we're seeing anything of it, although I see something faint right about there. And as we go south, I've noticed the galaxies tended to drift in this direction. That could very well be NGC 166. Even further south now, NGC 167, another galaxy in Cetus, but brighter, magnitude 13.6, 1 by 0.7 arc minutes. Spiral with a bar, and lowercase c, 170 million light years distant, makes this about 50 to 60,000 light years in diameter, half the size of the Milky Way. We are at minus 23 and change in declination. Scope's tilted pretty far south at this point, minus 22.5 degrees. NGC 168, galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.8. Fairly edge-on, 1.2 by 0.3 arc minutes, a spiral with a lowercase a. 172 million light years distant means this one's about 70,000 light years in diameter. We are at minus 22.5 degrees. In terms of declination, I'm seeing something right about there on the screen. We're now about as far north as we were south in Cetus. This is a galaxy in Andromeda, NGC 169. Magnitude 13.2, 1.8 by 0.8 arc minutes, spiral with a bar, 208 million light years distant, Means it's larger than our Milky Way, maybe 110 to 115,000 light years in diameter. And we're at plus 24 degrees. We're not getting any blockage of the scope. Maybe we could even get to 40. I am seeing some real nice edgy on oblate characteristics, and there's another faint fuzzy near it. I wonder if we're also going to be making a little bit of a jump to it as well. NGC 170 is a galaxy in Cetus. No, it is not the neighbor of 169, I believe it was. Magnitude 14.4, 0.4 by 0.3 arc minutes, a lenticular spiral, some 192 million light years distant. Pretty small, fairly bright for that distance. And we're almost 2 degrees north declination in Cetus the Whale. NGC 171 is also NGC 175, and if I remember to do so, I'll skip 175. Seeing conditions are fine. We are fairly south, minus 20 degrees. It's magnitude 12.2, 2.1 by 1.9 arc minutes. Spiral, look for that bar in a lowercase ab, some 173 million light years distant, puts it about the size of the Milky Way. And as mentioned, we're at almost minus 20 degrees in declination. And yes, the galaxy is quite pronounced. Another galaxy in Cetus, NGC 172, magnitude 13.4. Boy, this is an edge-on galaxy, 2 arc minutes by 0.3. Spiral with the bar, the lowercase bc, 132 million light years distant. However, we are at minus 22.5 degrees in declination, so it is a bit chancy in terms of being able to really make it out clearly. We've headed further north in Cetus now to plus almost 2 degrees, NGC 173. Magnitude 13, 3.2 by 2.6 arc minutes. So its light is pretty well spread in the screen. Probably average surface brightness about 15, 196 million light years distance, spiral with a lowercase c. And as mentioned, plus 2 degrees. And it is coming out quite apparently on the screen with the 6 passes of the Rev2 system. Not a particularly bad view for going all the way down to Sculptor. For NGC 174 galaxy, magnitude 12.8, 1.4 by 0.6 arc minutes, spiral with a bar, but also a lenticular, lowercase a, 156 million light years distant, means it's probably about 70,000 light years in diameter. We are at minus 29.5 degrees declination, and I can barely reach the switch on the handycam from my seated position. NGC 175 turns the corner. Galaxy in Cetus, it's also NGC 171. So I've already captured this, magnitude 12.2, 2.1 by 1.9 arc minutes. Another galaxy in Cetus, NGC 177. Magnitude 13.2, nicely presented, 2.2 by 0.5 arc minutes, a spiral with a lowercase ab and a ring. Not sure what we'd see of it, given that aspect ratio. Look for some brightening, either the top or the bottom. We're at minus 22.5 degrees, which means we're losing a couple of magnitudes of reach on this one. However, for you folks who live further to the south, Southern California, you might want to have a look at NGC 177. Here's another nice galaxy in Cetus, NGC 178, magnitude 12.6, 2.1 by 0.9 arc minutes. Spiral with a bar and some peculiarities. 64 million light years distant puts this one about maybe about 40,000 light years in diameter. We are at minus 14 degrees in declination, and boy, there is some features quite evident in this galaxy right there. Another galaxy in Cetus, NGC 179, magnitude 13.3, 0.9 by 0.7 arc minute, football aspected. Spiral of the lenticular class, 267 million light years distance, probably about 70,000 light years in diameter. We are at minus 17.5 degrees in declination. It's quite apparent on the screen, and it may have confreres. NGC 180 is a galaxy in Pisces, 8.5 degrees northern declination, magnitude 12.9, 2.4 by 2 arc minutes, spiral with a bar in lowercase bc. 238 million light years in diameter means this is about the size of the Messier 31, about 150,000 light years in diameter. The galaxy is quite apparent on the screen. We're at 8.5 degrees in terms of declination. There's certainly a sense of edge on to this one, and we shouldn't expect to see that, but it may be that we're just seeing the bar and not the rest of the galaxy. Okay, we're looking for a 15.5 magnitude, smallish, 0.7 by 0.2 arc minute NGC 181 galaxy in Andromeda at almost plus 30 degrees. There's no blockage of the aperture. That's very nice to have, and it's obviously near a probably a fourth or fifth magnitude star. Couldn't tell you what it is without looking at a chart. So NGC 181, magnitude 15.5, 0.7 by 0.2 arc minutes in size. Seeing a galaxy right there, let's check out the specification. Why don't you guess on that one before I specify? All right, excuse me. This is NGC 182, and as I suspected, it's a magnitude 12.4, 1.9 by 1.6 arc minute size galaxy in Pisces at plus almost 3 degrees declination. Spiral with a bar, that gives it that edgy on looking appearance up there, 236 million light years distant. And since Messier 31 at 450 million light years distant would be 1 arc minute, this baby is what? 1.9 at 236, so you multiply it roughly by 2, and it's about the size of Messier 31, 150,000 light years at plus almost 3 degrees in declination. I'm thinking it's the same bright star right there that we saw earlier. This is NGC 183, a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 12.7, 2.1 by 1.6 arc minute elliptical, 242 million light years distance, and therefore about the size of the great Andromeda galaxy. We're at plus 29.5 degrees in declination, and the galaxy view is quite apparent. I'm actually quite impressed with the number of brightish galaxies in the 150 to 199 series. All of these galaxies, especially the ones magnitude 13.5 and brighter, should easily be found on a decent night of seeing through a 12-inch Newtonian reflector. Note that our brightest star just shifted maybe a couple of arc minutes upward and to the right. NGC 184 is obviously a companion galaxy to NGC 183, I believe it was. It's in Andromeda, magnitude 14.6, 0.7 by 0.2 arc minutes, lenticular spiral, 239 million light years distant. Probably means it's somewhere around 50 to 60,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 29.5 degrees declination. And there are several galaxies in that field. We're probably not going to see this galaxy, but it's very nice. It's NGC 184, galaxy in Cassiopeia, magnitude 9.2, large, 12.5 by 10.4 arc minutes. It's weird. A lowercase d elliptical, 2.1 million light years distant. I think I can catch that. This is the satellite galaxy of Messier 31. However, I'd have to catch it further to the east with the scope looking out, but I'm going to punch the button. It's at 48.5 degrees. Let's see if we can go there. Uh-oh. I screwed up. NGC 185. Let's look it up. NGC 185. I was going to bail on it. But let's see if we can get it without too much of an obstruction in the scope. Well, folks, NGC 185, we're getting a good deal of obstruction on the aperture of the scope. We're unlikely to be able to detect it. I'll try to look for that as a special study. I have imaged it before as part of the M31 galaxy family, we might be able to have a view of it earlier in the evening when the scope is looking more towards the east. NGC 186 is a rather obvious galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 13.4, 1.4 by 0.4 arc minutes, a spiral with a bar. It's also a lenticular. Class O, 208 million light years distant, probably a little bit smaller than Milky Way, maybe 90,000 light years across. We are at plus 3 degrees. Look for that bar. NGC 187 is a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.3, 1.3 by 0.5 arc minutes. So look for some extension on that one. Spiral with a lowercase c, 174 million light years distance, probably about 70,000 light years in diameter. We're at minus 14.5 degrees in declination. The galaxy is quite apparent on the screen. Okay, we've had to skip a few open clusters in Cepheus and Cassiopeia. They were too far north. NGC 190 is a galaxy, however, in Pisces, magnitude 14.5, 0.9 by 0.8 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase ab. This one's 538 million light years distant, which gives it a redshift of something like 0.05. Given its distance, it's about as large, if not slightly larger, than Messier 31, our standard candle for galaxies. NGC 190A is very close to 190. I didn't hear a click. It's a magnitude 15.8 galaxy in Pisces, 0.6 by 0.6 arc minute size, elliptical, 544 million light years distant, plus 7 degrees. You probably noticed ellipticals tend to be a bit smaller than spirals, and that's because their gravitational mass is so much heavier. Most of the cold dark matter has been converted into stars. The stars are compacting towards the core, and that probably explains why most elliptical galaxies are smaller than spirals, which are in the process potentially of becoming ellipticals as they mature, as they absorb more small neighboring galaxies, satellite galaxies, and as more and more of their cold dark matter gets converted to stars. NGC 191 has the number of one of my favorite highways, which runs all the way from the border of Arizona and New Mexico all the way up through Yellowstone and beyond. It includes a favorite observing location for anybody who can get there in the Blue Mountain area of Arizona and New Mexico. This is a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14.1, 1.4 by 1.2 arc minutes, a spiral with a lowercase b and some peculiarities. 224 million light years distant makes it slightly smaller than our own Milky Way, about probably 80 to 5,000 light years in diameter. We are at minus 9 degrees in declination. It does seem as though there are several galaxies all clumping quite nicely and comfortably together. I was quite accurate in saying there were several galaxies there. There's a 191A. I did not hear a click of the drive, magnitude 14.1, 1.2 by 0.8 arc minutes, 264 million light years distant, lenticular spiral, also at minus 9 degrees in declination. Let's see if there's one more up there, because I can see 3. Well, if there was a third galaxy up there, it is not NGC 192, although the 192 is a galaxy in Cetus. Brightish, magnitude 12.6. Oh yeah, 1.9 by 0.9 arc minutes. You can see its extensions. It's a spiral with a bar, yep, but that's quite apparent. The lowercase a, it's at plus almost 1 degrees in declination, and we are at 39 minutes of right ascension at this point. There's some other galaxies in this field as well. I'm sure they'll pop up. The wind's really starting to pick up here. I'm glad I'm inside the observatory because it's very chill. It's probably about 25 degrees out, and we're getting breezes to about 8 or 9 knots. What we're seeing here is NGC 193, a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 12.2. You can hear the door swinging open of the observatory. 1.4 by 1.2 arc minute, lenticular spiral, class O, 195 million light years distant. I'll let you do the mental math on that. Our own galaxy would be about 350 at 1 arc minute. and it's 100,000 light years in diameter. Here we are at +3 and change in declination, getting a nice view with magnitude 12.2 galaxy. Another fine specimen of a galaxy, NGC 194 in Pisces, magnitude 12.2, 1.6 by 1.4 arc minutes, elliptical of class 1, which I believe that other galaxy that said it was an EO should have also been at least a 1. 233 million light years distant, +3 degrees. It's probably about a little larger than our own Milky Way, so that's actually a fairly large elliptical galaxy. NGC 194. NGC 195 is a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14.2, 1.2 by 0.9 arc minutes, spiral of the lowercase a and a ring. It is 220 million light years in diameter, so distance was probably about 80,000 light years in diameter. We're at -9 degrees in declination, and that wind is chilly. We have NGC 196, a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14, 1.3 by 0.8 arc minutes. It's a lenticular spiral with a bar, so it's a bit of a hybrid. 190 million light years distant. We're at pretty much 1 degree above the celestial equator and getting a fairly decent view of it and another more edge-on presented galaxy, which we may have already had a look at. Well, just a click away from 196 with NGC 197 of the galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14.1, 1.2 by 0.8 arc minutes, lenticular spiral, 183 million light years distant, probably about 75,000 light years in diameter, and we are still in the 1 degree declination region. Let's see if we get that nice edge on to come up next as I proceed through the last two numbers of the NGC 150 to 199 series. NGC 198 was not part of the 197 series. It's a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 13.1, face-on spiral with a lowercase c, 1.1 by 1.1 arc minutes, 236 million light years distant, and almost 3 degrees northern declination. It has some associates on the screen as well. The last of our NGC 150 to 199 series. Having previously covered the 50 to 99 series, we're now at NGC 199 Galaxy Pisces, magnitude 13.6, 1.2 by 0.7 arc minutes. Nice obliquely presented lenticular spiral class O, 206 million light years distant, and we are at +3 degrees. But we shan't carpe noctem out on this. Let's see if we can turn up something else that is more familiar to us before I knock off for the evening and take my frozen hands inside and give them a chance to warm up. Let's give this one a chance to pop out. I haven't seen this study for about a year now. It is a spectacular edge-on galaxy. It happens to be culminating overhead, and I do believe we are getting all the aperture on it. This should be a superb view of NGC 891 in Andromeda on the border of Perseus. Let me give you some data on it before we carpe noctem out. This is one of the most spectacular edge-on galaxies you'll see. It's even larger than the Sombrero Galaxy, Messier 104. It presents a beautiful bisecting lane in a nice star-studded field. NGC 891 is a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 9.9, but it spreads its light 13.1 by 2.8 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase b, a mere 29 million light years distant, but at 13, let's see if I can estimate the size on this. So a 1.3 at 290, yeah, it's about the size of our own, very own Milky Way, maybe anywhere around 90 to 100,000 light years in diameter. I want this baby to sit for a little bit. We are at plus 42 degrees in declination, and we are at hour 2, minute 22 and 33 seconds. So it goes 2, 22, 33, plus 42 degrees, 20 arc minutes and 53 seconds. I'm sure if you have a nice go-to unit, you won't have to put anything in other than your NGC 891 to view one of the finest edge-on galaxies presentable in a scope. And I have actually seen this with the dark bar and through a 6-inch scope at the eyepiece. So yes, if you do have a smaller scope, 6 or 8 inch, you do want to get out and see if you can pull up this spectacular galaxy, NGC 891 Carpe